Hey there, and welcome back to this introduction series for Path of Exile. If you're new to this series, this is for those players who are essentially brand new to the game. It's going over some of the basic concepts for those who have little to no experience. At the end of our last video, I told you to go play for a bit and keep following your skill tree path and path of building. I also progressed my necromantic witch since we've last seen her. We'll go over a few of the things that have happened to me, and probably you, since then. This will include talking some about the stats in the character screen, how we can find out how to get some of the skill gems for our build, and some discussion about your stash. So, here's our witch. As you can see, we've picked up some new equipment and some new skills, including our first movement skill, in this case, Frostblink. Movement skills are very important, and you'll likely have the best one for your build listed in the skills tab of your build guide. If you have a different one right now, don't worry, you'll be able to acquire that other one later. But how exactly would we go about that? We find the answer to that in a fantastic resource known as the Wiki. We'll be talking about using the Wiki for a few things, but for right now, let's find out how to get the Frostblink skill that our build outline wants. Type Frostblink, or whatever skill you're looking for, in the search bar up top. It should come up on the suggested searches, but if it doesn't, just hit enter. It describes the skill, its interactions with other skills, and gives its actual item card from the game near the top of the page. Scroll down, and we'll see how it progresses as it gains levels. You'll likely have noticed that skill gems level up if you've played a bit more, and you've seen this pop up near the top right of your screen. Note, you do need to click the plus sign for the gem to level up. Scroll down a bit more, and we find what we want: item acquisition. It talks about crafting recipes you can use to craft the item. We'll talk more about that another time. Then it mentions any quests in which you can receive the item as a reward. Below that, it lists vendors at which you can purchase the item. You'll notice that not all characters can receive the same rewards for quests. If you're not playing a witch, you've probably already noticed how your rewards have been different from mine. This is also true for being able to buy the item from vendors. This chart shows that the Witch, Shadow, Templar, and Scion can all choose the item as a reward for the quest Breaking Some Eggs. The Duelist can purchase it as a reward from the NPC vendors Nessa, Siosa, and Lily Roth after completing the quests Breaking Some Eggs, A Fixture of Fate, and Fallen from Grace, respectively. This means that the Ranger and Marauder can't get the gem at all during their quest lines, even from vendors. You'll likely run into this at some point during your playthrough. Most builds will require 2 or 3 classes to be able to get all of the skills you require. This can be nice because it lets you experience different playstyles. Don't worry too much though, as you usually don't have to progress too far before you can purchase the items you need and put them in your stash and grab them with your main character. Speaking of stash, by this point you may have deposited some items in there. If you're a brand new player, your stash will likely look something like this. Very similar to other games in which you can share items between characters. You can absolutely use this stash as is and play the game having a ton of fun along the way. After all, one of the biggest appeals to Path of Exile is that it's free to play. Now, the topic I'm about to talk about is one of the more controversial ones as far as Path of Exile is concerned, so I'll preface it by saying that the following are my personal opinions and experiences. Now, as with the vast majority of free-to-play games, Path of Exile does offer in-game purchases. You can see these by pressing M or navigating to the store through the menu. These come in the forms of cosmetics and storage. Personally, I never recommend spending money on cosmetics unless you really want to, but that's entirely up to you. The storage, however, or what they call stash tabs, can be very worth it. Here's what my stash looks like. Yes, it could be better organized, don't judge me. As you can see, it's much more organized, with certain items having their own themed and dedicated tabs. Aside from just the amount of storage being much greater. Now, for the hundreds of hours I've put into the game, I've put in maybe about $50 US. I don't know about you, but I've spent much more for much less. So it's more than worth it to me. In the end, you'll be the one deciding whether or not you want to spend some of your money on this. If you can see yourself putting some significant hours into the game, I definitely recommend it. If you're just starting out, I'd recommend picking up the Currency, Gem, flask, and unique stash tabs. These all help you sort those items and provide more storage than your regular stash tabs will. If you catch a stash tab sale, which happen about once a month or so, you should be able to pick all those up for $20 US or so. Again, spending money is always up to you. Alright, to bring things back up from that super duper serial topic, let's talk about something more gameplay related. Your character screen. Press C to bring it up. Here you'll see your name, your 3 main stats, your level, your resource levels, and 4 subcategories. These are offense, defense, miscellaneous, and charges. If you hover over your stats, you can see what they translate into. But the most important numbers come down into these 4 tabs. Offense has your offensive stats. Weird, right? These will change depending on the abilities you have. We can see your overall damage per second, which, depending on your build, may actually not matter, but that's a later discussion. Chance to hit enemies, critically strike them, and similar stats for any elemental damage you can do. If you can't do anything of a damage type, it just won't show up, like how we don't see lightning damage here. Now our witch is doing a minion build, so you can check any mods to our minions in the miscellaneous tab. Here we can see our minion damage modifier listed because of other stats we picked earlier. There are several abilities in the game that grant you charges that you can gain multiple instances of. The more you have, the more benefit they give you. Modifications from these can be found in the Charges tab. Finally, what's arguably the most important tab, Defense. We'll cover from top down. The amount of armor you have influences the reduction in physical damage that you take from enemies, but not elemental damage. Evasion rating influences your chance to have the enemy miss you with their attacks. Keep in mind some rare attacks can't be dodged. You can also have an energy shield. This is essentially a second health pool on top of your regular health, but it is bypassed by chaos damage. You've likely already seen items you've picked up influence these 3 things in one way or another. Life and mana regen per second is just what they sound like, and can be nice because you'll rely less on life and mana flasks. Your resistances are one of the most important things in the game. You have probably already seen creatures doing elemental damage. You can hugely mitigate this damage by focusing on getting these resistances maxed out to 75. I'd recommend you do this sooner rather than later, as some bosses will absolutely wreck you if you don't have your resistances up near that 75% cap. Keep in mind though, the chaos damage doesn't count as elemental damage and is its own beast. Well, that's all for today. Keep going and keep trying to help out the citizens of Rayclast. In the next video, we'll talk some about the game mechanics you'll run into in the first few acts. That about covers it. I hope you were able to pick some of the useful info up from this video. As always, if there's something you'd like to see covered in future beginners videos, let me know in the comments below. I'd also love to hear how your build's going so far. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later.